many founders are creators, and as a matter of fact, I'm also a creator with the fact that I'm so entrepreneurial. But that does not mean that those creators are also salespeople. That's actually something that you see in mature companies where people only follow the system, and people don't question the system itself anymore. It's my assumption, and assumptions are bad, that we start with the end, while ideally automatically to see what is wrong on the operational level, while many challenges have their origin on the strategic level.
Welcome to the Revenue Discussion Podcast. This podcast aims to inspire and educate the newest generation of revenue leaders on various subjects related to sales, marketing, revenue operations, and customer success. Every week, we invite an inspirational guest who is willing to share his or her insights, strategies, and tactics that has worked or still working for him or her. Today, we invited Cedric Royer to the show. Cedric is honestly one of the greatest sales leaders I know. He has been for more than 20 years in sales, and his specialty, transforming sales to a science. And in this podcast, we'll talk a lot about how to kill intuition by using systems. Enjoy. Hello, Cedric. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm very fine. I'm very happy I can attend the show. I'm looking forward to have a conversation with you.
That's great. Awesome. Now, Cedric, you have been in sales for many years now. I mean, you have held positions such as VP of sales, head of sales, sales director, you name it. But recently, you made the jump to optimize revenue scaling systems, right?
Yes, correct. And accidentally, my initiative is called Jump Foundation. So I had to make the jump at a certain moment, right?
Exactly. So please go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about you, who you are, but also why did you make the jump?
Yeah. So who am I? So quite international, born in France, grew up in Belgium on the Flemish side, lived in Russia for 7 years, lived in Ireland for 6 years, and now in Spain. Married and 2 kids. Always in tech sales. Started in the previous century, so yes, time flies. So I have been in sales quite a long time. Basically, I've sold hardware. I've sold the thing we called before SaaS, which is ASP. So we made some offering around this, but always around tech, hardware, software, security stuff, and so on and so on. Pretty quickly, I became responsible to lead teams, going from departments until regions. So the reason I made a jump, so I have had some previous entrepreneurial experiences where I was responsible for some department, and I decided to, based on an opportunity, add services or offer services to other companies. And yes, I'm entrepreneurial, so I learned a lot in corporate, but there always this looking outside the window and seeing, one, the opportunity, two, also the amount of entrepreneurs that really have brilliant ideas, and I really want to help those people to make them successful in what they're doing, why they're doing it. You see the gaps in the market, so this is basically why I decided now is the time to jump. Also partly with COVID, of course. The world is a village now. A lot of things can be done remotely. For example, this podcast, but also like coaching, consulting, shadowing, sales calls, you name it. So the market just has been completely influenced by COVID. When we speak about how long I have been in sales, actually around 2000, I was selling VPN boxes, pieces of hardware from Nokia, a piece of software from Checkpoint. So I'm already more than 20 years working with remote working solutions. And honestly, I was surprised why still so many people were kind of shocked that working from home would not be possible. Working from home was a challenge also for the employers. While for me, it's already 20 years normal to work remotely. So I saw the opportunity already much longer, and thank God the market has completely shifted into that remote working environment, which really is a huge opportunity for people that see the opportunity and grab it.
Yeah, definitely. No, it is an opportunity. But so yeah, you are entrepreneurial. You have definitely your expertise because you were 20 years in sales
Let's
already.
hope,
But But yeah, no, definitely, I can tell you that. But then you decided you were going to help other companies to scale their revenue systems. But why do you think there is such a gap, or why could your expertise be there relevant? Do you see some type of problems, typical problems that you see?
Yeah, so many founders are creators, and as a matter of fact, I'm also a creator with the fact that I'm so entrepreneurial. But that does not mean that those creators are also salespeople. So with their enthusiasm, they manage to get those first sales. They understand why the customers need the product. However, when they start adding salespeople, there is often a gap between what and how they know their product and their solution versus what I think that salespeople should be able to do, could be do, because founder-led sales is completely different, as you know, than sales done by a sales team. It has completely different dynamics, and this leads to loss of opportunity. Simply because if you think that as a founder you have done two very big sales, that two is also the right number to hit for your salespeople. While you can scale completely differently. At the same time, when you add different people, you have different viewpoints, you have different focus points, you have different ways of doing stuff. But if you want to scale, if you want to grow, you need to systemize this. And in that sense, it's very good to work with a sales specialist. And here again, there is the opportunity. So a big challenge is there also, will I hire somebody? Will I hire a VP sales or a sales director or a head of sales, whatever you call it? Or will I bring in somebody for a limited amount of time, structure everything, structure the processes, building the systems around it, building that sales playbook. And then when I have this, okay, let's stay in touch regularly, but I don't need to pay a full-time person to lead or to manage my team. So as a matter of fact, you see quite a lot of offerings of fractional VP of sales and so on. So there is definitely a gap and a need for this. So again, that is the opportunity, and with remote working, with the growth of the entrepreneurs and so on.
Yeah, that's definitely something that you see coming up, the fractional VPs of sales, of the fractional CMOs nowadays. All
Yeah.
right, so now if you suppose you enter a new company today, what will be the first thing that you look into?
Talking to people, first of all, and secondly, looking at the pipeline. Uh, and again, there, so talking to people to understand who are we working with, what is the vision of the leader or the founder, how are they looking at their product, how do they translate it. And there, the first learning is that we are all sitting way too close towards our own solution. And I'm guilty myself, you're guilty at it. We are just in our business day in, day out. We have some blind spots just because we're too close to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So even adding somebody external for a while, you will already know that some things that were common for you, when you look at it from a different perspective, you can have a very quick change because somebody else sees the blind spots that you have. So when I talk to people, also when I look at the salespeople, I look at first of all the potential. Why are they there? So I don't know if later we'll talk about this, but that's also maybe a lesson. Don't hire everybody who wants to work for you. Work people that really are standing behind your cause, standing behind your technology, see the opportunity.
Is that something easy to do, you think?
Well, understanding why they joined the company or being behind the
Yeah, just
cause.
recruit the right people that indeed believe in the cause. Because if they come and really want to work for you because of the short-term opportunity or whatever they find attractive to your company, they might come really motivated and energetic and ambitious, while maybe they are not a real fit with the purpose and the long-term vision of the company. But is that then something you think is hard to see, or do you have maybe tricks to know which people are a good fit?
Well, when I joined companies myself, I was not necessarily over enthusiastic about the vision and so on. That's why the onboarding part will be very important. So the challenge is to understand the drive, the passion, for me, entrepreneurial, that they're coachable. So that first part, when you hire people, and then at the same time, your responsibility to have an onboarding system to really make them understand why. When I joined, for example, NVIDIA, it was okay. We are going to power the last pixel in the world. That was a strong ambition, and we know why we did certain things. Plus, the technology was superior to any other thing on the market. When I joined Indeed, okay, it is what it is. I mean, you sell advertisement space, you sell HR tech solutions. However, the key mission is we help people finding jobs, and this is something that really attracted a huge number of people. And it's actually a very nice thing to do, because then you had all these witnesses of people coming, listen, because of you, I could pay my rent, I could buy a home, I could start studying, and so on and so on. So it is really something that you can rally people around, and this is important. So it's not just, okay, what does the candidate has to offer, but it's also what do we have to offer, and how are we living the vision, how are we day to day, well, let me say it, working, because I said living the vision, but a working the vision, making sure that the things that we promise, that they actually happen. And this is that focus is very important.
Yeah, and something that you say there is that you don't only do to do the job, or it's not you sell just features. You really want to feel the customer benefits. You want to feel the impact, and I think that's maybe a good thing that every company should try to adopt, right?
Yeah, definitely. And then when we talk about sales, also before you solve the solution, when you do your discovery, that you come with a story, that you come with references or case studies, and that you see the eyes of the person, and no more hints with Zoom and other things, that you see the eyes of the person like, oh, I need this for me, I need this for my company, because these and these and these are the advantages for me. What's in it for me? These are the advantages for my organization. These are the pains that my company will be able to solve. It is part of a priority, and I am going to champion this for you. So it's a whole thing in bringing this over, not only to your candidate, but also to your customers. And this is something that I can help building up with.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because I know that you are a system guy. You like to have systems in place. So maybe I'm just curious to find out, what is your ultimate systems? How does your ultimate systems look like? How do you try to process that revenue scaling system into companies?
Yeah, and of course it's not one system. The goal to grow is to systemize what you're doing. And there are a bunch of different systems, right? So if you look at the start, for example, when we are aligning people, that we have a communication system, I'm going to call it. How will you communicate? Who will communicate? What you will communicate? When will you communicate? And this is not high tech. This is just that this is set up and that this is executed. Then that you have the basics right in creating a lead gen system, not just having some adverts or having some posts on LinkedIn, and then hoping that there is an inbound lead coming, that you have the checklists, ebooks to attract people, that you have then an outbound follow-up system. So these are second systems, but then you have other systems like pipeline management systems. So again, that you have consistency in understanding where are we with our deals across the board, that one person is not thinking, oh yeah, this deal will come in next week, if they have not even done a discovery call, for example, and other people think completely opposite way. So you build in systems for growth, but also for predictability. So they're like 20-25 core systems that companies ideally have if they want to grow.
Okay. And so if you say systems, does it has to be something linear? Because if you say about lead generation, I immediately think of, all right, but you can do multiple ways of lead gen. But if you say you implement a system, is it really a sequential, linear journey?
Well, that's a good question, because if you go pure on the lead gen system, it can be serial. However, we all know, I assume most people know the buyer journey as well, so they might download an ebook for their own learning. However, they might all be also download an ebook because they're researching a technology, researching a service. that does not mean that you will immediately start pitching to them. So there are different layers in how you will approach somebody in building up. And if you say linear or not, multi-channel, it can be linear. Multi-channel can also be parallel. So there are different touch points. But that's when I think about it, there's a lot of things to say about this, because you also have when you target certain customers, then you might target different contact people within that prospect, within that company. So where you will build different types of content for those different types of people that you're targeting. So it's not as simple as just, I have a system in place. Really think it through, and then again to make it simple again, because if it's too complex, you will confuse everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And also a question I'm asking, because if you say systems, you really have to follow the rules, the guidelines, and the data. But sometimes you also have to use your intuition. So how do you try to balance your intuition versus the use of the systems?
Could you give an example when you have to use your intuition?
For example, sometimes you cannot take a decision because you don't have the data yet, but at the same time, you know that speed is everything, and your intuition says that maybe it's a good time to, I don't know, to follow up now or to give that call or whatever. But so when do you try to make that call of I follow my guts, I follow my intuition versus, I'm just gonna make it simple for myself, follow the system, and then everything will be all right.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's actually something that you see in mature companies where people only follow the system, and people don't question the system itself anymore. So they have put, I'm going to call them rules in place, of processes in place, and then they don't ask anymore why do they actually exist, those processes. And for me, one of the biggest examples is if you look at Amazon. So they have now that concept of contactless shopping, where you just take the stuff from the shelves and then you go away. And then if you look at the traditional retail, where you have the task of taking an item out of the shelf, put it in your basket, you finish everything, you take out the item from the basket again, put it on the belt, the cashier takes it, scans it, and then you put it back in a bag, and then you put it in the cart. So these are a lot of processes, and those retailers are looking in how can we optimize those processes. While Amazon said, okay, how can we get rid of all these processes? And this is innovation, this is entrepreneurial. So yes, to give an answer then on your question, yes, it's you always have to one, question it, but also use your gut. Are we doing the right things, and are we doing the right things right? So if you say, okay, I won't follow the process because the outcome is crucial, the outcome will be this, then just forget about the process. As long as it, again, we can then systemize how it has been done. Because it's important also to be agile. You always should be able to test things and to fine-tune things.
Yeah. Yeah, you said there's something that you need to do you always need to try to do the right things, but how do you sometimes, or what is your go-to advice maybe to discover what the right things are? Because sometimes you are in your own bubble, in your own context, sometimes you have those blind spots. But so how do you go and discover what other possibilities there are in the market, or what other systems, or what other best practices there are?
By testing, by talking to people. So to give an example, sometimes people say, okay, you have to come in high with a customer. So you start talking to a C level or a C -1. But then somebody else might say, hey, actually I had 5 conversations with somebody on the operational level, and I managed to book a demo, and they invited the decision maker, so maybe we'll go that way. So then a reflex could be, no, our process is to follow the C level and then engage in conversations with them. While it might be interesting to see, okay, can we increase sales velocity by talking first to those 5 operational people, and then going into a demo or a discovery, then demo, and so on. At the same time, personally, I do believe it's always better to enter it in the C level, right? So, but always give the people the chance to test and to confirm or to challenge the thesis.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Definitely. Gotcha. All right, so just to continue on the system topic, Because if you have systems, I suppose you also have those metrics in place. But what are the key metrics for you that you always want to track and better even optimize?
Yeah, so for me, there should always be a basic activity, because if you don't have activity, you cannot start measuring what you do during the activity. You simply don't have enough data. So when we have the activity, we look at the type of quality activity then. How many conversations do you have a day? How many demos do you set per week? And then also, if you look at the velocity, what is the average deal size? However, that's also an important, a very dangerous one, because you have customers like big whales where the sales velocity is completely different than mid-market deals. So also there, don't look at it just as a blind metric, because a metric is only a metric. Look at how you use it. And also what is important is that I look at the pipeline size, pipeline activity. When do you touch your opportunities? And then, of course, your how do you reach your target? Do you reach your target? Yes or no? And then again, we go first back to activity before we look at the skills. And when we look at the skills, then look and say, what do people say during the conversation? Are we building urgency if it is possible? Are we building urgency? Are we discovering? Are we controlling those next steps? So that's then, I said, the second part.
Yeah. All right. So I have activity, velocity, pipeline size, less touch. Do they reach a target? Yes or no? If you talk about the velocity and pipeline size, you have those big whales. Do you then try to have different benchmarks for the velocity depending on the potential deal size?
In general, yes. Because it also helps positioning for a sales rep that big whale. My experience is that when you have people that come from transactional sales or inside sales, when they work with big whales, they look at the number. Okay, for example, let's say 3 months for a deal. I immediately need to start transacting. I immediately need to start pitching. Then the deal goes south. So there you have to go slow to go faster than later. And also in forecasting, for me, I look at the pipeline excluding those big whales to see if they have those metrics right. Because when the deal does not fall, that big whale does not fall, or doesn't fall within the quarter or even year that you forecasted in, then you have a problem, of course. So yeah, I put them aside. Also on the coaching, also on the preparation of the calls, and so on.
Yeah, because ultimately the goal of having a good pipeline management system in place is to have some consistency over the different deals. But I can imagine if you have a big whale, it's always going to be different, right?
It's always going to be different.
Is it not? I don't know.
It is always going to be different. And then I was thinking, if you have multiple big whales with multiple different sales reps, then it's going to completely skew your pipeline. And what I see there is that, and I see many good things. Right? So big whales are not deals just for the sales rep. You work with the entire team around it. So you will include your director, you will include the VP sales or the CEO, definitely. So it's not the only responsibility. So the sales rep closes, but the entire team helps that sales rep closing the deal and progressing the deal.
Is it then right to say that for a big whale you should expect the worst but hope for the best? As in, you shouldn't actually take it into consideration in the forecasting, etc. But you should still try to do your best and hope to get the deal out of it.
Well, it's not hope. It's again systems. And that's when you work with a team. So you will assess, who do I speak inside that company. If you have a big whale, a huge opportunity, but when you only talk to that operational person is not a budget owner or a decision maker, then you should not put it in any forecast whatsoever. However, when you see that you start knowing who is the decision maker, you're in contact with the decision maker. If you understand this is part of the priorities or this year's priorities, even when the budget owner says yes, this is something. So there are different elements to qualify. And a big whale, you constantly qualify them to put them to put them in your forecasting, yes or no, and then either they become a best case or they will be an upside. So when will you commit them? So that's why it's a mid-market deal is faster, so you have many more of them. Either it falls or it doesn't fall, but a big whale has such a big impact on the revenue that's better than to approach it in a different way.
Yeah.
And then again, there in the pipeline management system to understand, okay, from that moment on, when we have those conditions met, when we have done our diagnosis, then we will put them start to put them in our forecast.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see that you work indeed with a lot of condition when it comes to pipeline management. What is then also maybe the biggest mistake or the biggest issue that you see when it comes to pipeline management? Is it that people just don't work with conditions and just move the deal forward based on that intuition, perhaps?
Yeah, that's it. So and that's why I asked you previously. Give me a question. Tell me about intuition, because especially pipeline management, there it's really a science. And the biggest mistake that I see is that people, they don't put conditions for the customer. So they give and they give. They do a splendid job of doing discovery questions. They do a splendid job of understanding who is the decision maker, how does the org look inside. They understand if it's a priority, if there are goals and pains, and so on. So I don't need to retell the entire story here now. But they forget that they need commitments from those customers, from those prospects as well. Does the customer says yes when it is a priority? Does the customer give more information from what is going on inside the organization? Yes or no? And then you set criteria on when will you put one opportunity from one stage to the other stage. And the moment you put this into place, so not only the gives but also the gets and the conditions, you see a complete change in how pipeline management is done. The impact on forecast. So for example, it's already a couple of times I did it, and in one quarter the forecasting accuracy goes from 30 to 90% and even more. So it really goes fast, and you can know across the board that as an owner, a founder, a VP sales, that you know, okay, my pipeline gives a correct view of where am I with my revenue, how many new deals do we have, how many closings do we have per week, per month, and so on, rather than having that individual way of looking at pipeline, which is often not at all.
Yeah. No, but I love what you said there, because you said something, you said you give a lot as a sales rep, but it's not only giving, it's also getting a lot of information, and really information that you can check off your list, because that also gives you focus as a sales rep, right? It gives you priority. You know what you should be looking after, and only if those conditions are fulfilled, you can continue with the process.
And it's also for yourself. I mean, I was once involved in a deal a couple of years ago with actually a Belgian hospital, and the sales rep said, okay, yeah, it's gonna come in, but the deal did not come in. So I called to the CEO and said, just wondering about the deal. And they said, we said, the deal will come, no problem. However, we need to have for that amount of money a board of director meeting and to get the budget allocated. And this happens, the next one is was it 3 or 4 weeks? But that was those 3 or 4 weeks were in the next quarter. So we missed that deal for the quarter. So that had a kind of impact. So, but at the same time, it was a learning, right? So I should have been more involved. So I was definitely involved. At the same time, as an organization, it could have been interesting if you had the conditions. When do we need to know? What is the purchasing process? Is there any legal involved? And so that we know this, if it takes 4 weeks, that we don't forecast the deal 2 weeks at the end of the quarter. It's gonna fall. So these are all things that you need to that ideally you understand when you do your pipeline management, and then when you work with the deals to understand where is the deal and why is it so. And this is the science part of it.
Interesting. How does that link? How can you link that maybe also to the power of saying no? Because perhaps you have potential clients, prospects that would like to continue the process, but where you maybe say no because of those conditions. Is that something that you do or you recommend to do, or do you say always listen to the prospect and try to still adapt and try to help the way you can?
Yeah, and I'm pretty direct. So a very strong yes. This is something that I can only encourage people to do because it's also your time and time that you spend writing a proposal for one prospect is time wasted if you don't have the conditions, if you don't have the commitment from that prospect or that customer. As long as they don't say what you need to hear according to the system, right? Then you should not spend time on this. You should keep on talking to them, but doing that admin stuff, no. Same if they say, okay, show me what you have. If you have not identified its priority yet, or if it's the right person that can accelerate in that deal inside the organization, then I can strongly suggest no. And for example, what I see everywhere, that the demo part is something that people are the most reluctant in doing this, in saying no. Because people assume if they have seen my demo, we start the conversation. However, there it's still, for me, to say it in an extreme way, a waste of time, as long as the customer has not given firm commitments. For example, if
Before or after the demo?
Before.
Okay.
Everything is from the discovery. So even if you have a discovery with an operational person, in the next meeting, ideally you have somebody higher up or some other stakeholder who will attend the demo. And why is this? The operational person has only the operational viewpoint. They don't have that span of control to really understand the impact that your solution can have on a strategic level. And the operational person will look at their budget, if they have any, in for the potential cost or the potential return for their solution, while your solution might completely encompass the entire organization. So this is why it's so important.
But don't you believe in having a quick, easy win for then perhaps, upsell and try to involve more people into the solution that you offer?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so because you said that if you are, for example, in contact with someone that's working at an operational level, he or she doesn't see the holistic view of how the solution can help the entire company, also at a strategic level. But maybe it's also good to have that quick first win to work with only the operational level to then further upsell with the entire organization to also help at a strategic level.
And define the first win, the first close?
Yeah, the first win. So maybe a smaller deal where you only help the people at the operational level, because once you have already a foot into the company, inside the company, you can maybe try to help further.
Yeah. But at this level, I would always involve decision makers to make the scope as well. Okay, one focused as possible, but also as wide as possible to measure the impact. Perhaps selling one license does not mean anything for you. And I understand what you're saying. If you look at organizations, they would spend way too much time to have that small deal, let me say 1K, 5K. You really need a very, very high velocity organization to be able to support this, rather than going for these 10, 20, 100K deals. So in that sense, it's better to qualify an opportunity like this out, keep on nurturing it, go higher up and talk about it. Okay, yes, that person was very interested because of these and these and these reasons. So it can be used as inspiration. But I would not do it because you would waste your time on too many small deals. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So, sometimes you have an issue in the company, but it's maybe hard to say if it's at the operational level, tactical level, strategic level. How do you go and try to discover where it is that the revenue is being stuck?
I think it's my assumption, and assumptions are bad, that we start with the end, while ideally automatically to see what is wrong on the operational level, while many challenges have their origin on the strategic level. Even identifying your ICP. Maybe there is no traction, or maybe there's low demand, or your sales reps cannot book meetings because the ICP has been incorrectly defined, so the ideal customer profile, or there is no definition of what is a good use case, or no compelling story. So what I see is that sometimes sales reps are left to their own, and that they are expected to build those flows, those drip fed messaging and so on, while their only job should be talking to customers and closing deals. That's it. That's very simple, and everything else should be done by operating supporting organizations. And this mind shift can have huge consequences, because if you start then everything on the strategic side, you really aim that ICP, you really nail the way you describe your case studies, your use cases, you really name your storyline, then it becomes so much easier to sell for the salespeople. So, and then you see that the activity goes up, the customer facing time goes up for the sales rep, the conversion rate goes up. Rather than talking about, the sales reps, they're not closing, how is it possible that the sales rep, and we have the bad sales rep, da 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 da. So again, the reactive mode versus going back to basics, that's something that can have huge impact.
Yeah, so that's interesting, because actually what you want to maximize, and that's maybe a metric that you didn't mention earlier, is that you really want to maximize the customer facing time, right?
Yeah.
For the sales rep,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah, definitely. And also there, when I talk about this, it can sound that I want to give much pressure, more stress to people. No, it has, okay, what will we do to maximize the, let me say, 8 hours of working time that the sales rep has? And then on the one hand, we set expectations at the what is best in class. At the same time, we look at how can we support those salespeople by, let me call it, outsourcing everything that is not core to the sales job to the supporting departments. So I know companies that where salespeople don't even have to make the proposals, they don't have to make any presentations, they don't have to do any pre-sales, not sometimes not even any demo. So that really that they can fully focus on discovery, building that customer intimacy, really become a trusted advisor, and of course the average sales value is then also higher, but that's then the same outcome when you're constantly going for these small upsells, as we just said, right, the 1,000, 5,000 deals, but by spending a bit more time, by being able to focus on this, by being able to work in virtual team size, where you have marketing supporting you, where you have pre-sales supporting you, then you really can really dig into that customer and build that compelling use case, or you can immediately qualify out saying, there's no priority this year, but we will nurture. So the goal here is not to put all the burden on the salesperson, quite the opposite. It's just letting them do what the salespeople are best at, whether it's farming, upselling with existing customers, or hunting people that love talking to customers, love challenging them, and love closing those deals.
But in some way, I'm pretty sure that's also a debatable topic, because if you have all those specialized roles, right, people that, help with creating the proposals, or that help define the right ideal customer, the one then the actual sales rep that go and have those customer facing times, then I can also imagine that you create extra silos and you will hurt your speed probably, right? And I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah, and silos is a huge topic, obviously, and we need to avoid having silos. This is why it's, well, let me say it differently. If you look at traditionally the old sales way, because what I say, I know it might sound like, okay, the lone wolf that goes for a coffee and then mysteriously comes out with a purchase order of a couple of million. And then when that lone wolf disappears and goes to another company, that customer follows that lone wolf. These days are gone. It's all about collaboration, and you see it like athletes, where maybe they're on the field, but you have a whole team around them with people that give them massages, nutritional tips, that really support them to become successful as a team. And that specialization is also happening in sales, whether you want it or not. So, but the fact that you have collaboration, you don't have those silos, because you constantly work with each other for the same outcome. So then when I say that, you might say additional people might be an additional cost, but the fact that the salesperson can focus on what he or she is doing best will lead to a far better outcome. No need to spend loads of time on admin, no need to spend lots of time on making those presentations and so on. So it really leads to a huge upside in sales.
Yeah. No, definitely. At least when done right, because I can imagine
Yeah,
that unconsciously you create those silos because you have all your own priorities but maybe there I mean, don't you have some experience on how to try to you know not have those silos in place? Because I suppose communications and communication, the expectations is very important, but maybe also rotations
yeah,
in jobs. I don't know if you have any experience with that before. Does it help?
yeah. Yeah, job rotation, or let me say before COVID, physically rotation. So I know organizations that every 6 months they do a shuffle.
Hmm.
So people from one team go sitting into other teams, and you really see the dynamic changing. You see friendships are being built, and they last after the next shuffle. People are involved in those projects. So again, that's why that collaboration is so important, because you form those social bonds in a formal setting, a formal setting in a business meeting,
Hmm.
and they last. So, and this really breaks through the traditional silos, which is frankly something that is much more in mature companies rather than scale ups.
Yeah. No, interesting. Now, what is the advice that you give to most sales managers?
That's a good one. Can you be a bit more specific, because I give a ton of advice?
Yeah, I can imagine. Maybe we should link back to your strengths, right? To having right systems in place. And so I'm just thinking of when you have to coach a sales rep on particular deals or whatever. What's the advice that you give there? What's the role of the sales manager when you have such a good pipeline management system in place?
Yeah, so when you look at pipeline management, the sales manager has different tasks.
Hmm.
Let's start by the end. They will ultimately decide to qualify in or out. At the same time, the opportunity is, and they will look at it from another point of view, so they can spot opportunities to accelerate the deal that maybe the sales rep has not seen. Again, because we have those blind spots,
Hmm.
so that's why a pipeline review is so important. On that sense, many people are anxious about their next pipeline review, but they shouldn't be. So the sales manager should also make the sales rep understand why we have a pipeline review, what is potential outcome, and how we will help them. Also, by the way, sales managers should spot opportunities for other people to help that sales rep, because we just spoke about collaboration. Many sales reps they talk about their sales pipeline. That also means they go after those deals all by themselves. But again, there a sales manager said,
Mm.
okay, listen, engage this person, involve me, let's do this together. This, and then yeah, challenge the sales rep. A good sales rep like stretch goals. So see how we can accelerate certain deals without pushing the customer, obviously, but what is the opportunity, where can we build urgency, and so on.
All right, good one. So now tell, because you have had, I mean, about 20 years of experience now, or even more. So you've probably made a couple of mistakes along the way. So can you maybe share a couple of mistakes that you have made that you say, guys, if you can try to not do this because I did it and it didn't go well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, a big learning when you become a sales leader, and also maybe as a founder, don't think you know it all. And even if you know the solution, don't work top down. And this is a huge mistake I have made multiple times, where I understand the why, I understand the what, and this made me assume that I will also say the how. But that a leader, if you have no followers, then you're not really a leader. So
Mm.
creating that accountability is hugely important to to create one team, first of all. Secondly, to create that accountability with the salespeople, and to also make them understand why they should do it. So by involving them in defining the how, because if you say, okay, this is the path, this is where we will go, help them building that journey, rather than letting them be passive. So this was a very important lesson. I have lost people because of this,
Oh,
good
wow.
people. So this is terrible, obviously. Then and something else I learned was when the customer is about to say yes, don't say, oh yeah, by the way, I have another solution, because this slows down the process tremendously.
Oh no.
And this happens in the beginning of my sales career with a bank where there were like 12 people from the bank around the table, and we were the three of us, and the procurement department challenged our pricing. And I said, yes, but if you want, I can. And then the moment I said this, you felt the silence around the table so hard.
Oh,
So
no.
yeah,
Yeah, those
I
are the
immediately
moments you don't
realized,
forget.
yeah, that's one of these moments that you don't forget. Yeah,
But you get the learnings out of it. That's also
yeah.
important.
Well, fortunately, yeah.
All right, Cedric. Well, thank you so much for all the learnings that you share here with us. If people want to find out more about you or want to get help from you, where can they reach you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn. So it's LinkedIn and then Cedric Royer. Or they can send me an email to cedric@jump.foundation. And I'm always interested in learning from you guys and understand what are your challenges, how you want to move forward. So always interested in having a chat.
Awesome. Now, Cedric, the ultimate question for you. If Cedric Royer was a brand, what would it stand for?
Whew, if I was a brand, that's a good one. I'm a carer. I genuinely want that everybody is successful and optimizes their potential, and it's my thing to care. So my goal is that I can provide for my family, that I can, but at the same time that I can help people so they can provide and they can care for their family and surroundings. So that would be me.
I like that one. It says a lot about you.